Blog Talk Radio.
Conversations on the Way, our Viatorian Voices podcast. Hi, everyone. This is Jim Mitchell, and today, as we always do, we're going to get to know a member of the Viatorian community, find out about their background, the path they took, and some of the things they're doing today. And looking forward to our conversation today as we welcome Brian Hansen, who is, as we'll learn, a Viatorian associate. We're going to find out about what led him to that decision and some of the things that he has done and is doing. So a lot to cover. Brian, first of all, our first time to talk here on the podcast, so welcome, and thank you for taking some time to visit with us today.
Jim, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
As always, we like to find out about some of the background of our individuals. Many of them come from different places and take different routes. We've always had opportunity to talk about the influence of Saint Viator High School. You were a graduate of Saint Viator. Tell me a little bit about your experience there.
Yes, so I graduated from Saint Viator High School in 2011. Had a wonderful experience there, especially with my theology classes that I took during my time at the high school. And actually it was through my theology classes and my interactions with various members of the clerics of Saint Viator that encouraged me to want to pursue a bachelor's degree in religious studies, and then after my bachelor's experience, pursue a master's degree in theology at Catholic Theological Union, which I just earned this past May. So I have a great love for theology, and it has to do with mainly in part, totally the clerics of St. Viator in guiding me to that point.
Yeah, and really interesting steps there, and there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about CTU, the Chicago Theological Union. Let's get to that briefly here. But you mentioned the Viatorians and influence. When you were a student in high school, were there any particular faculty members or administrators who influenced you?
Yes. So my freshman year, I had a Viatorian by the name of Father Corey Brose, who taught me freshman theology, fundamentals of the Catholic faith. And it was amazing for me because, growing up, I went to Catholic school. I'm an Arlington Heights native. I went to Our Lady of the Wayside for elementary and middle school. And during my time there, I never had a religious teach me the Catholic faith. And so my freshman year of theology, to have a Catholic priest teach me was just so profound for me. I was surprised, and at the same time I was excited. And then later on, I had Father Corey for a semester in junior year for world religions, and I had a blast with that class as well. And also I was taught by another Viatorian by the name of Brother Jim Lunard, who just had a very passionate and energizing personality in the classroom. And really through that class, I just every day I was always looking forward to being in Brother Lunard's class, and he was one of the major reasons as well that I wanted to pursue religious studies during my college years. So yeah.
And through the series of conversations on this podcast, we talk about various things that are Catholic, whether it's a Catholic school, church, parish. We talk about being Catholic. You have referred to theology here and something that interests you. When you talk about theology, what does that mean to you? Is that faith? Is that religion? Is it specifically Catholicism? Help me understand what you mean by your interest in theology.
Well, I think theology, obviously, when you break down the word, it's the study of God, or studying the matters that involve God. The higher power, whatever you would like to call it. But, those big questions that people, at least some point in their life, tend to ask. Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? Where is God in the midst of suffering? If there is a God? Those sorts of questions I was very intrigued by. I have a love for, aside from theology, a love for history and, subjects that involve literature. So it's those sorts of deep questions in regards to human life that theology allows you to reflect upon and really grapple with. And it's those sorts of questions that I love to focus on and relate to my own life, and also dialogue with those who share in that desire to not be surface level with their life, but to really think deeply about where is God in the midst of my day-to-day interactions with other people and with myself and my relationship with Him. And theology allows for that. So I'm very much a reflective and contemplative person, and I think theology best suits me and provides that outlet for me.
Now, there's a whole other piece of that, though, because theology, as you described it, it sounds to be very all-encompassing and in a lot of different ways you can go with that. But you're also a teacher, and just being a teacher is an entirely different profession. Did you know early on that you wanted to teach as well?
I think that desire for teaching was a result, as I had mentioned earlier, from the theology teachers, specifically the Viatorian theology teachers that I had at Saint Viator High School. And I kind of set out with that desire in college. So there was always this idea in the background of doing teaching. But after my college years, I actually got involved doing missionary work for the Catholic Church, doing retreat ministry up in the 5 dioceses of Wisconsin, and really being a witness of my Catholic faith. I was involved in a ministry called Spiritus, and that is where I grew in a deeper love and appreciation for my Catholic faith, the values and teachings that are promoted by the faith. And I then got to share that with other young adults like myself, to other young Catholic youth between the ages of second grade and high school, senior year in high school, to help them, ignite their own Catholic faith in their lives and live it out. So, on the one hand, I love the knowledge component of theology, mm-hmm. right? The deep reflective aspect of it. But I think also what's involved in that is also then sharing your reflections and realizations about God with those around you to inspire them to think about God in their own lives.
As I look at the clock here, we are a little more than halfway through our conversation with Brian Hansen today on Viatorian Voices. As I look at my list of questions, we're just getting started, so I will do my best to get a lot in here. We may have to have subsequent conversations because there's so much to cover with you, Brian. But talk to me about teaching high school students and specifically teaching theology to high school students. Are there challenges you face in trying to connect with that audience each day?
Most definitely. Especially in today's world, as I'm sure you know, Jim, I think there's less and less young people that are interested or eager or are willing to identify as Christian, or in our case, Catholic Christian, or just in any religion in general. We're living in a society more and more that is secularized, kind of either shuns religion or is apathetic to it. So at times, as a theology teacher at Saint Viator High School, I am faced with those students who may have this look of apathy or just this feeling of lukewarm feeling towards theological studies. How is this important to me? Why do I need to take this? And so it's my responsibility to meet them where they're at, but also to help them accompany them and help them see the value of this subject, since it affects and relates to their life in various ways. So that's probably a very big challenge. I think it's a challenge that theological educators are going to experience more and more as the years go on and as the younger generations identify less with religion. But nevertheless, it's very important that we continue being a witness of the faith to inspire others to grow in relationship with God.
And I hope and assume there are rewards in that process as well. As you go through each year with students and find some that you connect with, that must be very, very gratifying. But I guess I want to ask you about your path. You went to, as you said, your master's, you completed at CTU, but with the commitment you had to the Viatorian community, the influence, the love of theology, was there a point in your young adulthood where you considered making a larger commitment to either being a brother or a priest, or did you know you wanted to remain, let's say, in the secular side of things?
Yes, I was, for a time being, I was in conversation with the clerics of Saint Viator, discerning religious life. That was right after my 2 years of volunteer work for the Catholic Church with Spiritus Ministries. And I worked as an intern at Saint Viator High School's campus ministry while also working at Viator House of Hospitality, and really immersing myself in the ministerial commitments that the Viatorians have made as a community. And so while discerning that, I ultimately, though, came to the decision that I felt called to the married life. However, I think what the beauty of the clerics of Saint Viator has is the lay association. I very much enjoyed working alongside the Viatorians in their various ministries, and to know that I could be side by side with a Viatorian religious having the same goal in mind was just very attractive to me. And that's ultimately what inspired me to want to pursue association, this desire to be a witness of Christ alongside other Viatorian religious in the various ministries that we commit ourselves to.
And it seems like you have achieved a wonderful balance and perhaps found the best of both worlds. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes. So I just recently celebrated my second wedding anniversary with my wife, Elizabeth. And my wife and I, in August of 2021, welcomed our firstborn. His name's Elijah. And we've just been so blessed to have our family start off. And, sorry, there's a firefighter in the background.
Yeah.
We've just been so blessed, but at the same time, we're learning how to be not only husband and wife, but as a father and mother. And as I'm sure many married people know, that can be a challenge at some times, while finding many blessings in the midst of that. So.
And with just a minute left, though, I have to imagine that, the faith you have has got to be a wonderful component to your family and help you through those various challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Faith, having a deep faith life, I realize I'm in my late 20s. I'll be 30 next year. I'm so grateful that I've had opportunities in my life thus far to grow in deeper relationship with God. And the more I do that, the more I realize that without God in my life, I'm like a sailboat without a rudder. And I'm in the midst of a sea that is tossing and turning me all over the place. And I really feel like that's the negative consequence for young people these days who don't have God in their life. That by choosing not to explore God's presence in their life and commit their way of life to God, they're making their lives more difficult, or to put it bluntly, there's this growing restlessness inside that only God can fulfill.
Well, Brian Hansen is a just outstanding example of the Viatorian community, the Viatorian lifestyle, which proclaims Jesus Christ and his gospel and raises communities, which is what he does through teaching, where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. Professed brothers, priests, and as you just heard, lay associates who work together to bring Jesus forward to these students. That includes Saint Viator High School, a Catholic college prep community located in Arlington Heights. It's a welcoming and academically inspiring community. You can learn more at Saint Viator HS. That's Saint spelled out, Viator HS, and visit stviator.com to learn more as well. Brian, thanks for being with us. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks to all of you for listening as well.